to directly address you and take the talks forward.
Thank you, Mr. Maru. Good afternoon, Mr. Bahugna and Mr. Council. I'm Leo Yin, the CEO of DataFest. I'm glad that you accepted my request to join us at this table today to try and resolve our situation and avoid any chance of an adversarial mechanism such as litigation or arbitration. Firstly, I'd like to thank you, Madam Minister, for your support over these past years with the boom in the IT sector of Razad and the invitation and allowance to our company to expand into Razad and cater to the interests of the Razadian people. As you are aware, Booyah, one of our major projects, has grown by leaps and bounds over the past decade. While the platform was progressing rapidly and steadily, the move into Razad post your party's election led to exponential growth levels, with 200 million new users in just 2 years. This unparalleled growth led us to invest heavily in Razad, hiring 50,000 Razadi citizens with plans to go on a massive hiring spree, making us the largest private employers in the land. However, it is our firm belief that this move to Razad by our company was beneficial to the people and in turn the government of Razad, creating a mutually beneficial relationship between us. DataFest's contribution to the Razadian economy by way of Booyah has led to progressive changes in the country. Rural internet access has increased manifold, with people immensely attracted by the ability of a platform to cut across divides such as castes and faiths in order to produce and represent digital content. So much so, over 15,000 citizens of Razad have used our platform and the creation of content for it as their primary source of income and sustenance. As has been highlighted by the heavy voices that have come up since the banning of Booyah. DataFest was the first Alanian company to enter the Razadian economic space post the election of your government and Prime Minister Singh's invitation to companies to set themselves up in Razad. Our entry in 2015 was followed by the investment of various other Alanian companies in Razad, leading to greater employment opportunities and economic growth. So much so that the tremendous policies of a government and the entry of our companies led to an all-time low unemployment rate in the country. We are of the opinion that due regard should be given for our contributions to the economic growth and prosperity of the people of Razad. Mr. Minister, the background I have so extensively discussed forms the foundation of my views on the prevailing situation between your government and my company. DataFest has great respect for the people of Razad and their contribution to our growth, and we wish nothing but to contribute to their prosperity. But as a private company, we also prioritize our economic growth and maximization. Over the course of this meeting, we hope to discuss our future plans with you in regard to this financial situation. The crux of the issue at hand, however, evolves from the provision of data from our servers of citizens in the Dankon province of Alania to the government of Alania, where the data was stored on Alanian servers. This led to the circulation of unwarranted and false fears that our company was engaging in the collection and analysis of data of users outside Alania for Alania. These rumors caused great reputational harm to our company, which we seek to repair. Mr. Minister, these allegations are completely unfounded, and the investigations by the United States and the Eurasian Union will turn up empty-handed and with a clean sheet for our company. We have publicly acknowledged the provision of data from the Alanian servers to the government, but we did so because the law of the land in Alania allows the government to seek such data and forces private entities like us to provide such data to the government. While we reserve our views on the law itself, our actions go on to show that irrespective of personal opinions, we comply with the law of the land where we are engaged in business activities. As a consequence, we have constantly made it a top priority to comply with the constitutional principles and legislations such as the IT Act in Razad, and do so without cutting any corners or leaving any scope for error. I would once again like to assure you, Mr. Minister, that the information of the citizens of Razad is completely secure, as the data is not under the purview of the Alanian government, as it is stored in the country of Singapore, thus preventing any intervention from the government of Alania. In a sense, I'd reiterate the fact that we are a private entity focusing on complying with all legal and ethical norms, and it is only in our best interests to comply with the laws of Razad in order to benefit our economic position. We hope to continue to collaborate with the Razadi government and seek to have a ban lifted to continue our mutually beneficial relationship. Mr. Maru, if you could highlight our key interests at this meeting today.
Definitely. Thank you, Mr. Leo. Mr. Bahuguna and Mr. Council, I will just take 1 minute of your time to highlight and summarize our expectations from the meeting. We wish to first talk about lifting the ban that has been imposed on Booyah. Second, we wish to talk about our future financial plans of our company in Razad. And third, we wish to address the reputational hit that our platform has taken owing to the false rumors and conspiracies. Mr. Bahaguna, we would love to hear your take on the issue and your opinion on how we can manage to make our way out of it creatively. Thank you so much.
Um, Firstly, good afternoon. Thank you for having us here, and I really love the way how you've revered us as high officials. And but like I tell you, I'm the representative for. I can tell you that I'm the Minister for Information and Technology, and I shoulder the burden of trust that has been reposed by 1.2 billion of population of Rizal, and that is something that, as an official of the government, I'm accountable to. So I can tell you that basically I represent here the people of Rizal. So I think we are very much on same lines on that. Talking about banning the app, I'll tell you at this point of time, uh, we have some emergent nature of threat due to which there were reports and we also received complaints, and in regards to that our intelligence assessment has brought up before us that how that something is prejudicial to the interest and security of our nation, sovereignty, and the public order. At this point of time, I'll make you very clear, and it is very pertinent to tell you that national security and safety is something that we can't compromise on. And that will be the stand of the government throughout for this negotiation and even in the future, because of the fact that this is something that is very dear to any country, not only Rizal, but to any country. So moving ahead with that, I will tell you that we expect a sort of a high profile cooperation from your end, coming into our shoes and looking into a holistic point of view and where we come from at this point of time. We acknowledge every fact that Mr. Leo has mentioned in regards to telling about the economic interest, that how they have served till now to the people of Rizad in generating employment. We really acknowledge that very fact. And we also wish that the economic gains remain in the future as well. And we are here to discuss the future of Booyah on table. Keeping things aside, we've come here to talk with you in regards to that. And as Mr. Council has already laid down the various interests in detail, we wish to go in line with that. Firstly, talking about, if possible, lifting the ban. In regards to the temporarily lifting the ban or permanently lifting the ban in future, also in regards to scrutinization of the app, because the two main concerns that we are here today is data security and safeguarding the privacy. We know that is of that is of prime importance that we come here and look into. And also we've seen the word from the from Mr. Leo itself that there has been no breaches, but looking into that, we'll be going throughout the negotiation, talking and deliberating upon same and working for a workable solution and a mechanism in future. We'll be definitely talking about the about some regulatory issues that we expect from a company, and some term and conditions if a company or a Booyah app has to be reinstated in the market of Rizal. Apart from it, there will be some employment concerns, I guess, the economic concerns that you mentioned from our side, and I think that we are very much in line to that. And I think this is something that is from my end. Now I wish Mr. Shikhar, that is the council representing the government, to shed some light on some technical issues.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bhavaguna. Greetings to everyone present here. I, Shikhar Panwar, I'm the council representing government of Rizal. I really admire the cordiality which you show, Mr. Leo, on this table. I really admire that. I'm just expecting that the same amount of cordiality can be matched up from our side, then we'll be indebted to you. We're really thankful to you for having us in this negotiation meeting. Before starting with my opening statement, I would just like to mention that how the confidentiality of this whole meeting is a very prior importance for both of us. Therefore, till the time a concrete solution is reached upon, we'll be in a position to keep this meeting's confidentiality intact. And I expect the same from you. Thank you. As you have heard from Mr. Bahuguna, his unequivocal and categorical expressions concerns
with regards to one thing only, that is, nothing can supersede sovereignty and integrity of Razad. Nothing. To reaffirm our past actions, I would like to say that an account of various reports of Booyah apps surreptitiously stealing the data and transmitting it to alien servers, Alanian servers, mind you, in an unauthorized way was enough to take stringent action against DataFest. Yet, we waited for the classified preliminary information that was granted to us from our intelligence sources. The day we got that, we had to ban the app. We were helpless. Ultimately, I would just like to say that this action of banning the app has been done in compliance with all the domestic laws of Razad, and this is it. In return, Mr. Liu, we are really grateful to you. We are really thankful the way you treated this whole affair. With immediate compliance of the banning order and not opting for any adversarial litigation. We're really thankful to you. Henceforth, we seek the same amount of cooperation from your end on this negotiation, which would help in the interest of capitalizing cooperation, synergy, and symbiosis of the two parties present here on the table. In view of this, I realize that this matter has potential legal backdrop. Thereby, I suggest you that we should not indulge into the ins and outs of the legal dimensions of this whole matter, which will make this matter more ugly. Talking about myself, I'm a lawyer. And as a lawyer, I care about three things: responsibility, risk management, and the third one is legitimacy. Therefore, I assure you that these three principles shall get pervaded in this whole session throughout. Nevertheless, my role would be utterly advisory in its nature, and I would like that Mr. Bhoguna should make his actions and his decisions on its own. Lastly, talking about the interest which stems up from the position of Mr. Bhoguna, who's a representative here from Government of Razad, I would like to say that we'll be specific about three interests. First one is a short-term interest, that is scrutinization of Booyah app. Once the scrutiny has been through, that ban on the app shall be lifted off for a temporary phase. Secondly, moving on to the long-term effect of it. There shall be a shifting of data servers from Singapore to Razad, so that the server or the data of Razadian citizens should remain within the boundaries of Razad. With that, I would like to move upon the third and fourth issue. That shall be redefining of the security standards of this whole data center. From our end, this is an initiative that this should happen. Fourth one is re-employment and reinstatement of those employees of DataFest who have gone, unemployed for this whole 3 months of time for which the ban was there. Therefore, these are some of our four issues. And I realize that there are some common interest issues as well as diverse interest issues. Therefore, it is my suggestion to you that we should go upon the diverse interest issues first, and dealing upon that, we can make sure. So how about the scrutinization of the app shall be discussed first? Mr. Leo.
Indeed, Mr. Shekhar, since the scrutinization of the app is directly linked and I believe would act as a condition precedent to lifting the ban, I think it's in both of our best interests to talk about the scrutinization. Mr. Leo, if you have something to add to that.
Before we proceed, I'm agreeable, completely agreeable. As my counsel, he speaks for me. He's mentioned that we are agreeable with the agenda that you're setting, and the first issue we definitely like to discuss is the scrutiny of the app. So I had one question in regard to the scrutiny and the overall situation with regard to the security that has been judged for the app, which is being doubted. My question arises from advice that we received from our international experts at our company. And my question is of a very inquisitive nature. If not inquisitive, I seek to gather your opinion on this and what the position of the government is. the initial reports of there being a problem with our app and there being data leaks from our app to the Iranian government came as far back as in the first quarter of the year. Yet the Razadian government only investigated this matter post the conflict that has happened with the Iranians on the border. So our experts have suggested that there may be a geopolitical angle involved in this that may have resulted. So we have no idea as to your position on this. So we just seek your opinion as to this matter, whether the current situation with Alenia has any play with the security of the app and the doubts being raised. So if you could answer this one question, and if I could follow up with another question once you're done with your answer, if that will be permissible to you.
Okay, Mr. Leo. So firstly, clarifying upon the clashes that we have at border, this is something in regards to the banning of the app, we've already made clear in our opening itself. My counsel has also talked about that. Because of the intelligence assessments that we've done and the complaints we've received, we've taken this step. So in no regard and in no relation to the clashes that happened in border was kind of a hindrance, or you can say was a step forward to banning the app. Firstly, clarifying that. And in regards to that, we're talking about the scrutinization of the Booyah app. In relation to that, we'll be telling you about after you have to ask the question, a follow-up question. We'll be telling you how and why we are saying this, that there is no role of some geopolitical reasons in this. If that answers you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. That does answer my question. It was just a preliminary inquiry so that we are on the same ground. My second question is of a very basic nature and involves the first issue itself. In light of the scrutiny of the app, what has been unveiled by the intelligence authorities in your country, and what are these developments? Because we are completely unaware of any such occurrences, and we would like to know the same so that we can clarify if there is any possible doubt from your end, so that we are once again in the clear and we can re-establish that trust. So if you could just tell us about the report and what has been suggested by your intelligence agencies.
So in regards to the intelligence assessments report on the basis of which we've taken such a decision, I think the conclusive report that you've been asking for will be given to you if you give us a prior information or a notice as such that you need a detailed report in regards to that. That will be provided to you as in when required by you. But in regard to the scrutinization of the app that you've been talking about, it is in relation to that, and I think we wish to discuss about the very same issue and then come on to the point of the report itself, if you may allow us.
If I may just summarize what Mr. Bokunan just said, that the scrutinization of app has to take place in conjunction to the report which has come from our end. Now, you also know that reports are something intelligence agencies work, which is totally classified. We're not allowed to reveal that. But we are giving you a chance. Scrutinization of app would allow you to sign this questionnaire which shall be given by us, which shall, I think Mr. Bogunam would come on to that issue. And on that basis, we will be getting satisfied if these safety norms have been taken place, and then only we'll be lifting off this ban. So Mr. Bogunam, if you may just specify that.
I'm sorry. So the basic thing that we want at this point of time is that because of the prime interest that we share is the lifting of the ban at the present moment for a temporary time of period till the time we get a permanent or a concrete thing in our hand. So we'll be sending a questionnaire to you at your end, and we expect that you fill the questionnaire within 1 week time period, because I think this is something, a temporary provision, and we are seeking for immediate measures in that to reinstate you in the market. So the questionnaire will be as such, will be dealing with the in-app disclosure information, which in regards to the how the app functions, how the data is transmitted, how users access that, third-party involvement, advertisements, revenue generation. These can be the basic heads that we can tell you at this point of time. Apart from it, the functioning of the app, the certain technicalities that are involved in the app. And we will be ensuring a prompt action from our end. After 1 week of your answering of the questionnaire, In 3-4 days after we are satisfied with the questionnaire and the solutions or the answers you've provided in the questionnaire, we'll be ensuring a prompt action, and we will reinstate you in the market as same as you were before. So the ban that was imposed on you will be lifted temporarily, but we'll be talking about the permanent measure in future. So I want my counsel to elaborate on a structure of the questionnaire.
In just brief, I will just like to, add up. The questionnaire shall be very much different, and the contents of that can be decided there and then when this app's functioning will get discussed. But at the same time, we'll be asking you, if your approval is there, a private disclosure of the vulnerabilities of this app. Basically, I'm trying to say that the source and analytics code of this app needs to be disclosed to the top officials of our government so that a confidentiality remains. And we can just ensure if there are any bugs or vulnerabilities present in the coding of it. Ensuring that we'll be sending you a questionnaire. On that basis, you will be filling that. And on that basis, this whole affair will get resolved for the temporary time period, and the app can come back into the market.
Thank you, Mr. Shekhar. One question again that pops into my mind after hearing the codes that you've just laid down. So the algorithm that we've created for Booyah, as you know, it's a one-of-a-kind algorithm, and the algorithm is the key reason behind the success of the app. And it gives rise to a lot of intellectual property issues. Sharing that algorithm gives rise to a lot of intellectual property issues. So what kind of an assurance will we have from your side to the extent that our code is kept confidential, it's kept secret, and even those who do work with it from the government will not go ahead and sort of, to use a very crude word, leak it, or you understand where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah, we get you totally. So firstly, there will be an in-app disclosure, and I can see where you come from in regards to the infringement that you've been talking. But firstly, before my counsel sheds some light on that, I'd like to clarify that this code will be shared only to the top officials of the country. So firstly, this is the word from our end. There will be no leakage in this regard, and the utmost confidentiality will be maintained throughout. We continue with the formation of questionnaire and come to the prompt action that we have to do. And I wish Shikhar to add on something to it.
Right. So on that note, I can just say that, in this whole arrangement, government is the trustee of yours. And if government is going against the app developers or the app builders, then that's something you can have our word. That will not happen. If this happens, you have your legal provisions, your legal obligations. You can go against and sue the government. But on that basis, we can also have NDA signed, a non-disclosure agreement with your app developers, as well as the top officials, which will be, getting a glimpse of the coding of it. And it's just for the ensurement that a smooth functioning can be expected in the longer run. So it's totally a matter of agreement if you can allow that, and we can move ahead.
Mr. Minister, Mr. Shekhar, trust is a key word here, and it's a key part of the overall situation that we find ourselves in. So we will take your word for it. And as far as the compliance questionnaire is related, with regard to that, I'm sure Mr. Maru and the legal team at a company headed by him, they will definitely take care of those issues as well. And we hope that, but one thing I would duly ask you to consider is that when we are taking a step as drastic as revealing our algorithm to any officials, even the top officials of the country, it is a huge, huge matter for us. So in that regard, we'd ask you to not consider this to be only a temporary lift of the ban, because we are now practically being completely transparent to the government. So in that regard, once we are in the clear, when we have met the provisions with the compliance of the questionnaire, as well as with the algorithm, we believe that it would only be fair for us to be given a permanent, that there should be a permanent lift of the ban, because we run the risk of having revealed our algorithm, having fulfilled all the legal measures, and still being banned after a little bit of time. So we seek your assurance in that regard.
So I get you at that point of time at this issue. So this I think we've addressed one of the concerns, that is the security concerns, or you can say half of the privacy concerns or the data breaches concern. But we are still left with the part of safeguarding the servers in future and the security and privacy in some aspect. So for that, we want a data localization, that is the shifting of servers to Rizal. That is something at this point of time we can ask from you, and then we can look into the permanent lifting of the ban. So this was.
Thank you, Mr. Bahugana. So I believe, just to add on to what Mr. Leo has just said, when we talk about the word ban, it sends a very negative implication in the market. So once we do share our algorithm with you, and we do share the entire code that Booyah was built on, we pretty much will have nothing to share. So we just want to deduct the word ban from any further vocabulary, from the vocabulary for any further negotiations that we do take part in. To that extent, when you're talking about safeguarding the app for a long-term purpose, I suggest that our legal team includes a lot of experts who have specialized in data protection laws. They've done a comparative kind of a study, specialized study in data protection. So what we can offer is you make the ban, you lift the ban permanently, and we work together in coming up with a framework, a data protection framework, amendments to your IT laws that will build a structure that would be conducive for our functioning. And then this issue is resolved right at this moment, when we do not have to worry about any further bans from the government.
Just a question before you ask. I really wish to inquire about the amendments in the IT Act that you're mentioning at this point of time, and why you are just a consideration that the permanently lifting of the ban in relation to the shifting of servers, and a viewpoint from your side.
Could you rephrase that last part? I couldn't properly understand.
Yeah, so the permanent, like you mentioned, you do not wish to relate to the word ban. So we really wish to tell you that our prime importance is something safety and security, future safety. So at this point of time, before moving on to permanently uplifting the ban, we really wish to address the shifting of servers, and then we can come to a concrete agreement in this regard. So that was the point.
So again, to summarize what my suggestion here sort of was, so once we share our algorithm, you will temporarily lift the ban after we've complied with your questionnaire, answered your questions. And my suggestion here was to the extent that once that happens and the ban is temporarily lifted, that we can work on a framework of laws within which Booyah can function, so that you as the government have the assurance and a safety net of the very law that you will draft in consultation with us, that such future lapses do not occur. So that is a long-term plan that I was proposing. As far as the issue of shifting servers is concerned, Mr. Leo is better situated to address that concern of yours.
Before that, if I can just chip in and answer you, Mr. Mar. So as far as the legislation part is concerned, it is coming from a lawyer. And legislation in a democratic country like Rizal, takes a whole lot of time. It's not a temporary work. Therefore, I think it is in the favor of both of our parties that, first of all, we should think about lifting of the temporary ban for a temporary period. I mean, on that basis, we can, as soon as the questionnaire gets signed by you, we can move on to the next phase, that is for the longer period. That is shifting of data servers. But changing the laws as per the Booyah app's compliance, I think it's a bit far-fetched, and we'll have to think about this in a year or 2 years of time. It might take a lot of time. So I just suggest you that we can move on to the data servers aspect, and we can agree with the scrutinization of app, which we just discussed. If Mr. Liu can have a word on it.
Sure. So, okay. From my understanding, from a layman's point of view of all the legal jargon that is happening at the moment, what I have been able to understand is that we are completely on board with your idea of checking with our compliances. That is something that the government should do in order to ensure the security of its citizens, and we have utmost respect for the Azadian government for doing so. Secondly, as Mr. Maru has suggested, we have certain ideas with regard to the improvement of the laws and making new laws. But I think, yes, we have settled on the fact that we will definitely be able to enter the market at least, that once we have gone through our compliances. So that will at least allow us to re-enter the market and for the people to regain their jobs, which is very important at this point. As you yourself, Mr. Shekhar, suggested that we should arrive at the second issue and talk about the shifting of the servers. We did realize that this would be a contentious issue. We realized that this would be a want from the government. Now, I would like to take what you yourself were saying, Mr. Shekhar, about how it takes a long time for there to be new laws that are created and for them to be implemented in a democratic country. In a similar manner, a data server, where it's a huge system, and it's located at the moment in Singapore, the entire server farm on which the data is stored. And transferring the entire data farm is also a huge task, and it takes a long period of time, probably just as long as it would take to develop new laws. So another problem is that while the Azadian economy has boomed and has improved considerably in terms of its economic power, its industrial capabilities, the data protection framework within the country, because there is an absence of laws, there is also an absence of the infrastructure to provide for the same. So for us to be able to shift from Singapore to Razad and to transfer all of the data, there would first be a requirement to create those farms in Razad itself, which will take a long period of time because these are heavy systems. Therefore, it is our belief that it would better cater the interest, even in terms of the economic interest, because it will really affect us in the economic sense, in the monetary aspect, for us to shift our entire data farm, our entire server farm from Singapore to Razad. And we believe the payoff is not equivalent. So if you have any further doubts, I would first like to definitely hear your opinions on this, because that would be great. Mr. Maru would add on first, and then we can possibly lay out further objective criteria, if there are any further contentions as well. So Mr. Maru, if you could take over.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Leo. So what Mr. Leo has in a sense said is that first of all, the cost, the economic cost of transferring the servers from Singapore to Razad is a huge one. And second, server farms, while I'm not very well versed with the technicalities of what all goes in there, but minimal requirements such as continuous electric supply, a lot of skilled workforce that can operate and manage the server farm are the bare essentials, are the very bare minimum requirements for a server farm. And while we believe that Razad is a ripe destination for such investments, we do not quite believe that the time has come yet. And while we are totally amenable to shifting our server farms from Singapore to Razad in the course of time, at this point, it will pose costs to us that we would not possibly be able to bear. Adding to that, how I see this issue of server farms is what underlies the issue of transferring the server farms is your concern about the security, as I understand it. Having the server farms in a foreign land obviously raises some eyebrows on the part of the government. A government might not be seen in the best light when it outsources such services with people's personal information going over to a foreign entity, foreign government. But to address those concerns, to address those security concerns with two very short points. First of all, Mr. Bahuguna and Mr. Shekhar, you need to understand that Singapore is a highly developed economy. With such a high level of sophistication and development, also come a very strict enforcement of the laws, an independent judiciary, and very strong laws that come with that are the result of a very well-developed economy. So I propose that we look for alternative ways to ensure you ensure you about the security of the data that is stored in the server farms in Singapore, rather than shifting them from there to here altogether. Since your main concern here is security, I strongly believe that we address the security part of it, which is the underlying reason, rather than shifting of the farms altogether. I would love to hear your opinion on this.
We need certain clarifications before we could discuss this aspect. I really wish to inquire the time period that is required for shifting of servers if it were to happen in future as well. And the alternatives you mentioned, if you could throw some light on that, we'll be good to go and put in our word for that.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. So, firstly, our primary concern with the shifting of the data servers lies in the financial aspect, that it will impose a heavy burden. One of our decisions at the inception of the company itself were to decide where to place the data servers. One of the decisions was to place them in Singapore because the country was very well prepared and equipped to handle such server farms. If Razad, in our experts' opinions at that time, was itself prepared, we would have directly put all the server farms there. So we believe the technology has progressed very well, but not enough for us to take such a big step at this point at such a huge financial cost. Secondly, in our opinion, it would take a long time because firstly, you'd have to set up the infrastructure, the workforce, the capability, and the maintenance ability in the country of Razad itself. And further, the reason why we are coming up, and Mr. Maru has very heavily consulted with me on this before the meeting, is the reason that we suggest that we draft new laws in collaboration with you to assist you, is because even to possibly regulate these server farms in India, in Razad, you would need new laws. And you would need laws to govern them in that order. So the laws are required either way. So which is why we suggest that we begin with the drafting of such laws, and then we can move on to the shifting of the server farms when the infrastructure and the financial abilities allow us to do so. So in our opinion, and as has been suggested by our experts, it is prudent to go with the laws first because they are a given and that they have to happen anyway. So if we have the framework ready and then we move on to the heavy investment, it would be a smarter option. Mr. Maru, being the legal expert on this, can probably shed better light.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. As to your second question, Mr. Minister, as to how we plan on making you feel more secure about the data that is stored on our servers in Singapore, we can come up with a sort of regulatory framework where you will have, the government will have absolute sovereignty over the data stored in Singapore, because I believe that it is your primary concern to protect the data of your citizens. So to the extent that we use servers in Singapore to store the data from Razad, we believe that we can come up with an arrangement, and the technicalities of such an arrangement can obviously be discussed later, but an arrangement which would ensure that first data fetch and then a regulatory or a supervisory control of the government over that data. While we would not share the data with the government, will have a certain level of control, a supervisory control on how we use such data, where such data goes, and basically ensuring that the data is secure, the citizens are not hurt. One small point I believe Mr. Leo wants to add, and after that we'll be open to hearing your views on this suggestion.
We are open to hearing your views, Minister, but I just wanted to conclude one small point because we believe we left that unanswered for you because you were asking about other alternatives as well. So while Mr. Maru has suggested the possibility of creating a data law which will allow you to hold sovereignty over the data even on the servers of Singapore, I wanted to highlight certain things that I have learned from my experts, which was new knowledge to me as well, and which can possibly, bring us to a consensus. I understand that there may be doubts over the data being stored in Singapore, and as Mr. Maru has already provided for, that they are a very economically progressive country, and have very strong laws. In that light, we have three objective criteria, because of which we feel that your data is secure, even in Singapore for the time being, until even the laws are drafted. This is because of their significant economic power. They have an image in the international community, which they need to uphold. Simply giving away the data of another country to a third party, that would really harm their international relations as a whole. Secondly, while they enjoy a good relationship with Alina, they also enjoy a good relationship with Razak. And I don't understand why I highly doubt that they would risk harming their relationship with Razak over simply giving away data that is already detrimental to them in the international forum. And lastly, they're a legally progressive regime. So as their constitutional courts are highly active, and they also take into cognizance all the actions of the government, and the executive or moving in Singapore for any such situation where they may try and pass a law which might be to the detriment of Razak, that would also be immediately taken up by the judiciary and would be progressively answered by them, because they are also responsible for upholding certain international provisions. So because of which I feel that even Singapore at the moment is a very safe jurisdiction. So in lieu of these, if you could further shed light on any other contentions or any concerns that you may have.
Thank you for everything and answering my question. And I revere you for different solutions that you've taken on table at this point of time. We really need it. I really like the idea that you are not averse to shifting of servers, and we can definitely come to some consensus in future itself. I really love your cooperation in that regard. Secondly, in regards to the regulatory framework that you've been mentioning, we'd like to propose one of the things in that regard, so that both the parties are in compliance to that, since you wanted a government to have authority and efficacy in that regard. So we wish to appoint a committee of 3 members under the ministry, that is under me itself, that will oversee, I'll tell you the brief operations of that committee, will oversee the operations of Data Fest with respect to servers in relation to that you mentioned in Singapore itself. Secondly, in regard to that, we'll receive a detailed report, quarterly you could say, in regards to the specifying of, you could say, transferring of data, or to which parties the data has been transferred, and other specific things, and how it has been used in future. Moreover, in regards to your concerns regarding to the complaints, or we can come up, there could be breaches that can be established prima facie in future, we can have an investigatory power given to them at that point of time. If that happens and it has been established prima facie in future that there has been a serious data breaches, so the basic role of the committee will be from the government. It will be established under the government and will be kind of supervisory in compliance to every law that is in regards to Razadian law, and will work in supervisory capacity. And I want Mr. Shikhar to shed some light on that and establish a detailed structure for the very same, so that we both are on consensus.
Right. Thank you. It was a very enlightening idea which was put forth from Mr. Leo's side. Mr. Leo, how about this? If Mr. Maru and I can, settle upon that legislation part of bringing a new legislation in country of Razak, and then shifting the servers in future. And with that, for the time being, since we also know the stakes are quite high at this time, app has to get reinstated to the market in a permanent form, I would say. We also don't like a banned app, as getting reinstated for a temporary purpose. So how about this? A committee is formed. That committee will function either from Razak or from Singapore, on the basis that, you can also tell us about this. How is your data center functioning in the way that if remote accessing is possible in that, why we need this committee? We need to ensure that the data which has been for so many months, this app has been alleged that they have shifted the data of Razadian citizens to Alania. We just want to make a recheck. On that basis, it will ensure the trust of the people of Razak This committee, 3-member committee, will be comprised of the officials of Razad, who shall be just functioning as a matter of, just a check on which they are doing, is to oversee the present data, which is getting processed in the data center of Singapore. Second would be to receive a detailed quarterly report, just a quarterly report of those months of which we are having our own reports that some data has been breached. It will be their second option, second function, I would say. Third would be to launch an investigatory probe, which already other countries have probed, and we haven't done that because we wanted your assurance on this. We wanted you to have on the table, and then only we would like to go for any investigation. Once these three officials find out some glitch or flaw in the data reports, we can go for investigatory report with your agreement. And if may I allow, if you may allow Mr. Bahuguna to share one more aspect of it.
Yeah, so as Mr. Shikhar have already deliberated and told you about the functioning of the committee, and that it will be a 3-member committee, and the top officials will be working at who have the specific qualifications in this regard. The second aspect of the very same, if the servers till now are still in, you could say, Singapore. So still the security concerns, we can say, are partly addressed through a committee. We also demand, secondly, establishing of a firewall for the servers. So a firewall mechanism we want in place in order to ensure that there are proper network scanning or ICP scans to strengthen the security. We definitely, because the role of the committee in the sense is completely supervisory, and this firewall will be an add-on point. We understand the point that at this point of time, shifting servers is very, you could say, a lengthy procedure, and we can deal with that in future. But this firewall point and a firewall mechanism at this point of time will ensure future safety concerns are also met at this point of time that can arise in future as well. So that was from our end. We'd like to hear that how much we are in consensus to that.
That was really great to hear, Mr. Minister and Mr. Shekhar, from both of you. We are very appreciative of the solutions being offered from your end, as you have appreciated our solutions as well. So it's great to see that both the parties are actually combining to come to a collaborative end to this negotiation. And that is something that Mr. Maru and I were very hopeful for, and the entire board of directors at my company. So I definitely understand where you're coming from on this committee perspective and how you want oversight over our activities. And it would be agreeable to us, but with certain riders. Firstly, such a committee in public light will actually go on to further harm our reputation, because it would then imply that our company is kind of guilty, that there's a certain implication that we have been working to the detriment of Razad, even though our complete interests have been towards the prosperity, combined prosperity of our company and of Razad as well. So we do not want to do away with the committee as a whole. What we would prefer is that the committee remain confidential, and that all the activities of this committee are confidential, and there's nothing that's revealed over it. Secondly, over the question of the firewall, I assure you, Mr., that our company we have advanced over leaps and bounds this past decade, and our data servers, our server farms are very well protected, and we have layers of firewalls, if not just one firewall. So the data in those server farms is very well protected, and it has been encrypted by the world's best experts. So even then, the committee would have access to at least check the servers, because it is the data of your citizens. But one thing that I would suggest from my end is that it would still be better that while we are working towards all this, we work towards creating a system of legislations, because even while you continue to work as a part of the executive towards our activities, it would be better that we have laws in place so that it is easier for a company to be in line with all the norms in your country, because we do not want to have any future problems. And it would be better if we could have that structure created as well. But if we have your assurance that we could keep the committee confidential, as we need to keep our shareholders happy as well, as a government needs to keep its citizens happy, we definitely would be agreeable to that. And if we can arrive at a consensus over that, then we can definitely move on.
We really assure you the fact that everything that will be accessed by the committee will remain confidential. But in regards to the formation of legislation, pretty much on those lines, we wish that we wish to lay some framework or mechanism on those lines a committee will be working, and on those lines an app will be working in regards to transparency, confidentiality, and we can discuss that uh, at any point that is desirable. But amending the legislation is something, I guess, we allow at this point of time. We definitely are open to any sort of suggestions that you can make, but we can't tell you that we can go and amend the legislation, and it's a very huge task. There is a delegated, you could say, legislation that we've to go through, and something, and I am the executive, and this is the work of parliament itself. So you know where we come from. We can't assure you these, but we can tell you that we'll have guidelines in place, because that is something that is in our hands, and we can work on that guidelines and framework that we can discuss at this point of time. If we have consensus on that, we'll be moving on with the next issue. Precisely.
Mr. Bahugana, just to one very small clarification, the entire discussion that we had about uh, amending the laws was just a suggestion from our side for you to feel more secure about the data that we store. So having a strong data protection regime is beneficial as a whole, not just for our company, for the entire ecosystem within which e-commerce companies, any sort of digital companies function. So that it is in the best interest of Razad, and we have no interest. We have no particular interest in pushing for those legislation. It was a very humble suggestion from our side for you to inculcate strong data protection laws. Moving on, so I believe that as far as the issue of server farms and security is concerned, I think how I see it, how the discussions have gone in this regard, I see it has settled. And to briefly summarize, so your initial request was to shift the server farms from Singapore to Razad, to which we countered with some sort solutions, certain suggestions from our side, and certain assurances about how the data of Razadian citizens is safe in Singapore. And to this extent, we reached an agreement where a committee will be set up, a 3-member committee will be set up by the government. The works of the committee and the existence of the committee will be confidential. This has been done as per a request from our side to keep our shareholders happy, to maintain a positive market image. And lastly, for now, for the short-term future at least, the servers will remain in Singapore till the time suitable infrastructure and financial structures exist in Razad to shift such servers from Singapore to Razad. This would be a long-term plan, which obviously we can deliberate upon anytime in the future. So moving on, I guess Mr. Leo would agree, Mr. Bahugana, even you would agree that the reinstatement of the workers and subsequently after the ban is lifted, we would obviously need workers. So we can maybe start a dialogue on that. What do you think?
Yeah, surely we can go ahead, because the prime concern for a government is something that is related to the workers who have been laid off at this point of time. We really wish at this point of time that they get re-employed and the economic gains are restored. And if the booyah is coming back and reinstated in the market, and that is something that we expect from the booyah app at this point of time. And we really like to hear that how you are going to re-employ those workers and what are the perks and benefits that you wish to provide them.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Minister, and thank you, Mr. Maru, for summarizing the previous issue. It's great to see that we're moving on again and we've reached the third issue in such quick time. As has been discussed, even in the first two issues, we also are very focused on the development and prosperity in Razad, because it is intertwined with our success. Razad is a huge market for us, and we've been doing very well. So we understand, and you would understand as well, that the government and the people of Razad have also been faring poorly because of the current pandemic situation, and so has our company. all of us have suffered, the entire world has suffered, and we are very apologetic for the human and economic losses faced by your country. And we definitely want to collaborate in order to reach those levels of prosperity again. In that light, we, as has already been clarified and has already been mentioned by us in the past, we had already hired 50,000 workers, Razadi citizens in Razad, and our plans were to double that number by the year 2021. This temporary ban did dampen those plans a little, but I'm sure we can rev those plans up again and we can move ahead at full steam once we have established everything. But I'll lay the foundation in the fact that we have no issue in reinstating workers and possibly even planning on taking more workers and expanding further in the country. But as I have already mentioned, we do have very stressed financials. And you would understand that situation given the economic situation of the world. And we are not at this situation able to afford taking on all the workers back if we do not have some kind of, some rebates and some assurances from the government. In that light, our request is that the original tax rebates that were offered to us when we were entering Razad and were offered to us by the Prime Minister himself, we wish that they would continue beyond the stipulated period and be extended by 5 more years so that we are able to hire more workers and expand at a faster pace in the country. So with that regard, we are seeking a tax rebate in the moment, and so that we can actually work collaboratively to have more workers and to progress continuously. So if you could help us out with this financial situation, I'm sure we can do a better job. And I think Mr. Maru has a better idea of the framework that we're looking for.
Mr. Leo. So Mr. Bahuguna and Mr. Shekhar, what Mr. Leo has essentially said is that we have no issues whatsoever in taking on the workers that we had initially let go in light of the ban. Once the ban is gone, we'll be back to full operations, and we'll have no hesitation at all in rehiring those workers. Secondly, as far as our expansion plans go, and in light of the pandemic, as Mr. Leo has mentioned, our financials have been stressed for a while now. And to continue expanding as aggressively as we did in the last 5 years, we'll need this incentive from your side. As first of all, it would not cost any, it would not place any additional burden on the exchequer because it will only be in the form of a rebate that was already existing. So it's not like the government has to pay something from its pockets. Since the last 5 years, the tax rebate was in place, and Booyah and DataFest were working wonders in Indian markets. And we only wish for that to continue so that our upward trajectory is maintained as it was in the last 5 years. We'd love to hear from you.
Firstly, I'd like to apologize because there's a power cut on my side. So there is a dimming of light. I'm very sorry for that. And secondly, addressing those issues, I really get you from where you come from. And we really hope that, and the basic concern for us is that you're going to employ all of the people that you've laid off. And we'll be looking for the incentives that we could provide at this point of end. But before the incentives that we could provide to you at this point of time, we'd like to ask you certain considerations from our side that since these workers have been laid off, we really wish to discuss the perks and the benefits and the additional wages if they could be provided, because the pandemic situation is not only for the company but also for the workers itself. So in light to that, we can discuss the rebate issue simultaneously. So before talking about the rebate issue, I'd like Shikhar to enumerate.
Right. Thank you. I think I'm really thankful, first of all, that we are taking this negotiation so seriously, that we are, touching upon each issue with utmost deliberation. And I think we have landed upon the third issue till now. And looking at the time frame which we have maintained, it's very nice pacekeeping which we have done. Coming on to the third issue, that how there should be some tax rebate be given to DataFest so that they can again rebuild themselves in the Indian market. I can just say that tax rebate can be granted to you, but that comes with a rider that the employment of those people who got unemployed can come again, like they can get re-employed, firstly. And the second thing is that how can we increase the income or the wages of those people or those employees who were already there. With that, we are assuring you that tax rebate will be, coming from our end. But we can just make sure that those 50,000 employees are not going behind our backs and creating a ruckus and having a very drastic state. So I just want that assurance from you, and we can just settle on, Mr. Maru and I can just settle on that, and we will have our contract signed and the agreement made. So if I can have your word on
that. Thank you, Mr. Shekhar. And rest assured, we have always paid very competitive and the top percentile of wages to our workers. Since we value our workforce so highly, is the reason that we have been able to, is first of all the reason that that we had to let them go with a very heavy heart. We at DataFest function more like a family, and I cannot stress enough on how much we value our workers. As far as wages are concerned, we offer them competitive rates. We even add a premium to the market rates at some time when we really see value in one of our employees. So I do not fully understand what you are asking in this case, because the only reason why we had sacked those people in the first place was because we were out of operations and that there were no incomes from advertisements and such. The ban was the only reason that we had to fire those people. So while we will indeed rehire those people as our operations will resume, the question of an increment in wage, if that is what you are asking, or compensation for the lost time, is something that we'd be a little apprehensive about, and Mr. Leo can further elaborate on why that will be. And
thank you, Mr. Maru. So the basic logic here being that firstly, the first rider that you mentioned, we've already agreed to that we will definitely hire the workers that we had dismissed temporarily. We'll take them back on board, and we definitely plan on continuing with our escalation and our escalation and our hiring spree, wherein we plan on hiring around 100,000 workers for a company by the end of 2021. That may be delayed by a few months, but we'll definitely keep that on track. But it would be counterproductive for us if we firstly seek a tax rebate from the government in order to hire these employees back and to be able to pay all of their salaries, and more and over and above pay an increment in their salaries. So we would actually be functioning in loss. At this point, the reason we are seeking tax rebate is so that we can at least be able to compensate for the wages that we're already paying and to take all those workers back. But if we increase their wages, you'd just not be able to afford the same. So it will be an economically unfeasible decision for us. And it would make little sense to my board of directors. And I will face a lot of fire from them for bringing up such a suggestion. And we have to play by the market, because while we are definitely concerned with the prosperity of the citizens of Razad, we are also concerned with our economic interests, which we believe will be completely deterred by the current idea. Therefore, we believe that hiring of the workers is a given, and the expansion is also a given, but an increment in their salary would be a slightly difficult ask. So that is something that I ask you to shed further light on, is that as to what is the very need behind this increase in wages, considering the economic losses our own company is going through. So yeah,
right. On that concern is very uptight, and am I audible? Yes. So that concern is totally up to the mark, I would say. And talking about the reinstatement of these employees, we are not asking you to give compensation to them. We're asking for the time being to get them back into their forces and posts. The other people who are there, they should get an increment so that just they can, make good of their losses. And on that note, we are very readily giving you a rebate, as much as with this essence that you yourself as a corporation should flourish, as well as those 50,000 employees should also flourish. On that note, we are asking you to do that. If you can be just kind enough and give your approval. If okay, I think Mr. Boguna has something to say about that.
Yeah, so we've asking for the increment in wages just to directly say that in regards to your policy and how much you require at this point of time you wish to give to those employees. We really appreciate the fact that you've considered reinstating all the employees and even expanding the structure of employment of further increase in employment. We really appreciate that, but the prime concern was that it is up to you that how much you wish to grant the increase in wages to already existing employees. In regards to the policy, that can be determined, and we really assure you on regards of the tax rebate, we can discuss the very same and the time period for which we'll be giving you the tax rebate. At this point of time, if you could address this concern firstly, and then we can move on with the tax rebate.
Surely, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Mr. Council, as well for elaborating on the needs. Okay, so I believe that we can now clarify this matter. I do have certain answers for you, so and certain solutions as well. Firstly, we are completely on board. So we had to, as you would have seen, we had to let go of 8,000 employees on indefinite unpaid leave. So we will be taking them back on, and we'll be taking them back on our normal salary roster. The remnant of the employees, that would be around the 42,000, they were sent on 50% pay. Now we'll be reinstating their pay as well for the moment. Now our plans are that we would plan on increasing the salaries of these workers in due course once these tax rebates have taken effect. Now, we can't immediately increase the salaries because that would stress our financial accounts to an extent where we may need to borrow money from other sources just to be able to pay those wages. And in the long run, that's counterproductive to the economy of Razad as well. As you would have noticed, the point I'm trying to make is the economic feasibility for both the country of Razad and for us. In that light, I would just take a few weeks back when the app was banned, Booyah, and it was forced to exit. And there were fears from the other companies that had followed us from Alenia and to Razad. And the stock market in Razad had unfortunately taken a huge dip. So we believe that our re-entry, along with the trust that will be reinforced in the Alenian companies now that we are also going to be back, and our assurance of paying the original salaries to all the employees, hiring further employees, and in due course, once the tax rebates take effect, and when the appropriate time arrives, we will definitely consider those salary revisions as well. So in that light, the amount that we were discussing and that would be very suitable to us would be of around a 20% tax rebate over another period of 5 years, so that we can implement all of these plans and maybe go over and beyond them, so that we can definitely look into the interests of the people of Razad. So I would seek your suggestions or any other concerns that you have with the solutions that I have given.
Yeah, I totally thank you for such cooperative solutions at this point of time, and we totally get you that you basically understand the financial situation of the company and what the company is going through at this point of time, and we really appreciate the fact that you'll be considering increasing of wages in a due process, and that is something that we really appreciate at this point of time. But in regards to the tax rebate, now let's be very open. We are happy to give you a tax rebate, and we really wish that our economy flourish at this point of time. But as you could say, as good as or as big as 20% is something that we can't give you at this point of time, because if the situation is tough at your end at the company, we as the government is also facing a tough situation because we have to take care of certain things at this point of time. So 20% is something that has to be negotiated, and we offer you that we can give you at most 12% at this point of time. And if you are ready to go with that, we can definitely approve of things.
If I may just add on to it. Yes. So actually, looking at the session, this 2020-2021 session, we are in the middle of it. And due to that, not having extravagant resources at this moment, we might have to cut down to it. So if 12% just goes well with you, I just wanted to have your word on it. Although Mr. Boguna had already stated, but yeah.
Uh, right. So, Mr. Shekhar, Mr. Minister, as you know very well, that our earlier arrangement with the government was a tax rebate of 15%. That was given for a period of 5 years. That was a time that when we had initial encouragement and funding and the resources. Encouragement from the Alenian government, funding from our investors, shareholders, and a lot of other resources at our disposal to aggressively establish and expand in Razad. Now we find ourselves in the middle of a pandemic when our app has been off the Play Store for a while. Our cash inflows have been minimal, and basically we are drenched. We have been drained of our resources for quite a while, which is why we asked for an additional 5%. However, going down to 12% will really not be feasible for us at a particular reason, because 15% was something that the government was giving for the past 5 years as well. So at least a floor of 15% does not harm the government in any way. As it is, when we expand our operations, our earnings will increase, our net income will increase, our taxable income will increase. So the absolute amount that you get in taxes will be more than it was 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and 3 years ago. However, the percentage value will have a huge net benefit for our books, for our company, and for our resources, which is why we asked for an additional 5%. But going down from 20, I can maybe go as low as 17%. But that much you'll have to agree, because the absolute cash that we will be paying to the government will obviously increase. That is something that you need to take into consideration while agreeing with or while commenting on our proposal.
Before Mr. Boguna speaks, I can just, remind all the negotiating table participants that how millions of downloads have already been made. And once the app comes into the market, it doesn't even have to propel itself to, get back to its position. So I believe this is something which is very dicey, but at the same time, we can have our stakes on it. And we can just see that if the app is getting back to its pace and generating revenue at their own pace. So if
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Please go ahead, Mr. Minister.
So I get you that we were already, as you stated, that we were already on ground for 15% at this point of time. But you need to consider the present situation. So I think I can propose you something better than that. We can agree to 12% at this point of time for 2 years, till the time the pandemic gets over and the situation get caught of, you can say the situation is better in future. And we can definitely negotiate further and something in future in regards to that. I can assure you at this point of time, this is something.
Mr. Minister, thank you for your counter offer, and thank you that at least you're considering all of this. We can definitely talk further about this. And to answer a concern that Mr. Shekhar raised, the point that you're making, sir, is that you're saying that the apps are already downloaded and we don't need to propagate ourselves again. However, when the government of Razad banned our app, all of these apps were removed from the Play Store and from the phones as well. Therefore, when we re-enter the market, we have to drive our forces again. So basically, for the initial few months or even a year or two, we will not have the same revenue stream that we used to, because we'll have to regenerate those number of users because we were banned for that period. Then therefore, we'll have to focus more on our advertising. We'll have to spend more money in order to get those users back. So we are back to square one from where we started in 2015. Therefore, and in 2015, as Mr. Maru had already mentioned, we had other sources of income. As we were just a nascent company, we had a lot of funding from angel investors and other sources. We do not have that anymore, especially in light of the pandemic. Therefore, we are in a worse off situation than we were when we started in 2015, which is why we would need additional rebates in order for us to progress. Now, I'm willing to settle for our original standards as well, because that is how willing I am to work in the country of Razak. But to work under an offer wherein our original standards are also lowered, that would simply destroy the economic resources of our company. Mr. Maru has very well highlighted that the absolute revenue that would be generated by the government from our activities will continue to increase. And therefore, and the 15% tax rebate is something that is already in practice. You will not be making a further loss. In fact, year on year, you will be getting more money from our company, even while maintaining the 15% threshold. Factors that I mentioned, with the rise in the stock market again, when we enter the market and all the other companies and their doubts are reinforced, we believe that those economic measures will actually outweigh this tax rebate argument that we are holding at this moment. And when we rehire all those workers, consider their increment in the future and the number of future workers that we are going to hire. So I urge you and I request you that please do not consider this deal only to be of this immediate moment, just in light of the present situation. Please consider this deal as a revival from the pandemic. When the country is trying to recover and is trying to get back on its feet, we will be one of those forces which are driving the country of Razad in that direction. And for that to occur, we need certain assurances, at least the original assurances from the government, if not something better. So a 12% standard is not sufficient for us, because as a company, we would require that original assurance from the government, especially after this tumultuous period where we are not sure of what's going to happen. And which is why I request you to reconsider, and that we at least, we had originally seen the 20% offer for 5 years. 15% was also not on our cards because it is far too low for us to be able to manage in this pandemic situation. So please consider the overall economic feasibility of the matter, and please consider the 15% offer for a longer period than 5 years, because 12% for 2 years will definitely not be able to help us, and we will not be able to recover, and we will not be able to contribute to the economy of Razak. So, and the government and the people of Razak. So please consider our offer for 15% for at least a period of 5 years, subsequently renewed in the future, and that can be reviewed in the future. Please consider this, and please share your thoughts on this. Thank you.
I think Mr. Bogan is in a better position to take further. Just advising you, charge a nominal fee on your app's downloads, and with that you can just generate revenue. That's just something which I think as a market player you would be understanding, and if you can just take that advice, and I transfer it over to Mr. Bogan.
I really laud you for the insights that you've given me, and the tax rebates that you wish at this point of time and come down to 15%. And taking that into consideration,
I think, is my internet bad, or
no, I think
we have lost connection with her.
Yeah.
Right.
If I could please request Shekhar to take over. I think Mr. Bahuguna is not audible.
Can we wait for 30 seconds? I think that was the time required and prescribed somewhere. Yeah. So should we wait? And can I make a call to her?
We'll just wait for her. I think she could just give us a couple seconds.
Okay.
You can make a call to her in the meanwhile.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I believe she's back.
Yeah. I'm sorry for that. So, I'll pick up from where I left. So, we were discussing about the 15% tax rebate. We assure you that we'll step up from 12% to 15%, since you've also taken into consideration our aspects and you've come down from 17 to 15%. But we really wish to negotiate on the time period at this point of time. So for 15% for the, I think okay, I'll tell you, just cut my words for that. 15% for the first 5 years, we are good to go with that. And I think that is something that we desire at this point of time and will be in consensus for both the parties. And since you are the principal employer of so many Rizaldian population, and in view of the wages that you'll be providing them and the increments that you'll be giving them in future, we really wish to support you in any aspect, and the tax rebate is just one of them. Now, I wish if Shikhar has something to add on to that.
I think, as far as I can see, our issues and interests have been more or less clarified today and have been, agreed upon. First issue that was, I will just take a time and clarify it. First issue that was scrutinization of the app that has been agreed upon by you also. You will be, disclosing it on a private basis, the coding of it to us. On that basis, we'll judge if the vulnerabilities are there. If any bug is there, we'll try to make sure that every of this ban. Secondly, that was the data servers. For the data servers management, we'll form a committee, 3-member committee. That committee will have some 3 functions. On that basis, they'll keep a track from here, from Razad, and remote access will be granted to the data center. On that basis, if they find out that something like unscrupulous has taken place over these months, then they will have this opportunity to go over for an investigatory probe. And this committee's existence will be kept confidential as per you. So definitely that shall be abided by. Third is re-employment and rehiring of those employers, as well as on that grounds, rebate shall be given, keeping in mind that there shall be increment over the due process of time. So I think these are some of the issues which shall be kept in mind. And on the side note, I would just like to reiterate that how we can just keep this meeting as confidential till the time everything is settled and every stakeholder in this whole arrangement is getting satisfied. After then only we'll bring this matter to the public, and on a permanent note you are reinstated in the market, we can have this out in the public.
Summarization, it only goes to show and reinforces the fact that we have agreed to pretty much everything. We've reached mutual terms catered to both our interests. And as far as just to address the last point that we were discussing, I think Mr. Leo would agree as well that 15% for 5 years is completely agreeable to us. Post 5 years, we can pull together a performance-based review on whether the amount of tax rebates, if any, are necessary. What is the amount of tax rebates necessary? What is the duration of the next tax rebate if it is necessary? So at the end of 5 years, after 15%, we can review our entire arrangement. If 15% is still required for some more time, if 12% would do, if any tax rebate is required at all. So I think that pretty much sums up the tax rebate issue. And coming back to the point where I was emphasizing on how we've pretty much agreed to everything, and that the government of Razad and DataFest are on the same page, seeing eye to eye on these issues. I think that is a very ripe opportunity that we can take advantage of to send a positive signal to the market. And how we can do that, Mr. Leo will be able to suggest how we can capitalize on this opportunity to send positive signals to the market at a time when the market is struggling. Mr. Leo.
Thank you, Mr. Maru. So one of our primary interests when we entered this meeting was to repair the reputational damage that we faced over these past the course of this time, where the app has been, we've been told that there is, that we are potentially harming the sovereignty and the security of the people of Razad. So while I understand Mr. Shekhar is saying that all the details of this meeting will be unveiled after all the issues that have been agreed upon have been met with. What we would definitely appreciate at this point of time, and which would go a long way in repairing the trust that we have kind of distorted over this past period, would be if we can make a short statement, or at least the government can make a short statement, that DataFest as a company has been complying with the requests of the government in order to look into its activities, and it has been completely complying with any form of investigation or any inquiry that has been opened by the government. And that would also help in the stock market, which has been plummeting, as that would reinforce your faith in the Iranian government, and the Iranian companies, not the government, my apologies, the Iranian companies which are now working in Razad. And therefore, it would help the economic situation of the country as well, as the markets would rise, and it would go a long way in repairing our reputation, which is directly related to the economic prosperity of our company, which in turn helps the government of Razad. Therefore, we request you to make a statement which would be beneficial to us towards the outcome of this meeting. And once all of our issues are agreed upon and we have done everything as is necessary, then we can make a joint statement wherein you reinforce your trust in us, and we can once again work like the original collaborators and partners that we were. That would go a long, long way in helping us.
At this point of time, I totally understand the reputation concerns that you've addressed, but we have some reservations in making the statement right away, because since throughout this negotiation procedure, we have definitely discussed a few confidential aspects at this point of time in regards to committee. And this whole process is how our councils have dealt in detail is very confidential to us. But in regards to making a statement, I guess that before scrutinization, we'll be not in a better position to do that in regard, but apart from it, I'll like to tell you at this point of time that actions are something that will be more louder than making those statements before a questionnaire or something like a temporary lifting of a ban happens. So before that, we will not be in a position to do anything, but surely our actions will move something, and we'll be in a better position to do that in the future after we have a due process, or we have something at hand.
Mr. Minister, if I have one tiny concern with that, and I think with that, because we're approaching the end of time, that we do not unveil anything confidential from the meeting, and we make a joint statement in the capacity that we are working together to reach a solution, is the only form of statement that we seek at this point, which does not distort your image in your country and our image to our shareholders, which would be mutually beneficial. The details of the statement can definitely be worked out, but if we are in agreement in principle over a certain form of decision wherein we can repair our reputation, that would be great and would help our economic prosperity in your country. If we could arrive at a conclusion over that.
I totally get that point. We can just make a statement that we are working comprehensively, dealing with the problem and working for a solution. This is something that we can make at this point of time. But apart from it, the details and the intricacies are something that we'll make some reservations to, and we'll be working upon that, and we'll be making that after the scrutinization has been done.
Definitely, I think there is a paucity of time right now, and I believe both the councils can, crease out anything that is left behind through this mediation session. Now, if I could please request both the parties to quickly summarize as to what we've done throughout the negotiation session, because I believe you've raised certain interesting points and you've agreed on various matters. So if you could just quickly wrap up and summarize as to what we've done throughout the negotiation session.
Indeed. So the first issue that both the parties discussed and agreed upon was about the lifting of the ban that has been imposed. To that, we reached a positive agreement where the government suggested that the ban would be temporarily lifted. And through the course of negotiations, we agreed on the fact that it will be lifted and with certain regulations in place and certain compliances that we have to undertake. Second, we discussed the point. About how the servers from Singapore had to be shifted from Singapore to Razan, and even to that, we reached an amicable solution where we assured the government of the safety of the data. And the infeasibility of shifting the servers altogether. So the underlying interest of the government was in the safety of the data, which we ensured from our side, and an agreement was reached. Third, we talked about the issue of, from the government side, we talked about the reinstatement of employees, the reinstatement of pay of the current employees, And to that, in conjunction with that, we discussed the issue of tax rebate, both of which were mutually decided upon. The tax rebate structure and the reinstatement was of the employees was both agreed upon. And lastly, we talked about the issue of how our reputation has taken a hit and how we can take certain steps to restore our reputation in the market, to which the government has given an in principle approval to making a statement that the meetings and the negotiations are in progress. And that's the extent of our negotiation. And given how the meetings are going, I have a really positive feeling about where we will reach by the end of the sessions in future. Mr. Shekhar, if you have anything to add to that.
I think you pretty much summed it all. And I can just, on a broader way, just line out whatever we have discussed. We have discussed the lifting of the ban on a temporary note as well as on a permanent note. We have discussed the finances of the company, that is to say the rebate which shall be given to the data fest. And on that note, they will be doing some arrangements in the sense that re-employment shall be done, re-hiring shall be done, and a kind of a remuneration shall also be given to the already existing ones. Definitely. Last one is reputation. Has been discussed that how the confidentiality on the note of confidentiality, we shall be making it intact, but at the same time we shall be delivering a statement which shall have some reservation, which I think Mr. Maru and I can definitely deal upon with utmost wisdom. I think that was pretty much it. And in the long run, we'll be having a data center in Razad for the Razadian citizens. And I think that's all for today. I think we are cracking a very nice deal today.
Yeah. Thank you so much to both the parties. And with this, we come to the end of the negotiation session.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Judges, if you would like a 5-minute break, we can move into the self-evaluation post that. Tom, you don't need. Please unmute yourself.
As the parties wish, I'm trying to proceed, but they may need a minute to
yeah. All right.
Any other judges? I don't know. Any judges need a break?
I'm good from my end. Tom, I need to rush for another one. So can I take your leave?
No. No, you have to listen to the. So let's know this final session is scored, so you can't leave now. So let's go right to the feedback question session.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'll just quickly put the respondents in one.
So I'll just, if you could get on.
Put the respondents out, Amritya.
Yeah. You would have received a pop-up on your screens.
Yes.
If you
could
please
join that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Aditya.
All right.
I can state the questions if somebody hasn't seen them, whatever is more efficient. Yeah.
No, so we can see them in the chat.
We got them, sir. So should we begin? Great. Okay, so I'll answer the first question about the goals and strategies we came into the negotiation with and how they played out during the negotiation. So our utmost goal that we understood was that we have to get back into the business, and we have to get the ban lifted, and we have to get back into the Razadian economy. So that was the primary objective. We understood that the issue of the data servers would definitely come up, and our goal was to, if not completely avoid it, to indefinitely avoid it. So because we understood that this was something that the government would definitely come after. So we came up with some solutions, some arguendo solutions, so that we wouldn't be stuck on that point. And because we understood the government, it would be very difficult for the government to budge on that point as a whole. So we came up with a solution in the long run for it. and avoided any short-term encumbrances upon our part. Another goal was the tax rebate, which was very important, and we thought we negotiated that well because we understood we needed to highlight the overall economic situation in order to get that tax rebate. And the structurization that we placed in, we received that goal as well. And lastly, the reputational damage was something that has been agreed upon in principle, another goal that has been achieved. The strategy was very simple, and there was one simple strategy that we followed, that we cannot argue any of the issues in isolation, and that we would have to argue, or we'd have to achieve all 4 of these goals in conjunction with each other, especially because we understood the importance of getting back into business, and we wanted to be agreeable to the things because it's the government we're going up against and not just any other private entity, and they have more bargaining power in their hands. So we understood that as well, but we understood that if we highlight the key points which the government would find weak on their side, such as the economic factors that are deterring the government at this point, we use those in every single objective, in every single goal. And we highlighted them as much as possible so that the government also understood that the influence that we hold. So that was a strategy throughout, to ensure that we do not create any bad blood between us and the government, us and our home country's government, and that we ensure all of our goals are achieved in conjunction and not in isolation, so that we can have a more holistic solution to the overall problem. So those were our goals and strategies.
Addressing what we could have done, what I would do the same in a similar session. So I really liked how we dealt with the issues of first the shifting of servers from Singapore to Razad. So under that issue, we offered a lot of objective criteria on why that is not feasible. We mentioned that since it was given in our confidential information that it is an absolute impossibility that the board of directors aren't agreeable to shifting the servers from Singapore to Razad. We came up with a list of objective criteria that would justify such a move of not shifting the servers from Singapore to Razad, because from the government's perspective, it is a very legitimate concern that the servers, that their citizens' data is being stored in a foreign country. We understood that as a legitimate concern on the part of the government. So we came out with criteria where we offered economic impossibility, economic infeasibility, how the country of Razad does not have adequate resources to fulfill such a huge server farm. So I believe that we even asked for objective criteria in that regard, and we addressed the underlying issue, which was not shifting of the servers from Singapore to Razad, but the security of the data of the data of their citizens. So I think we addressed the fundamental issue rather than the ultimate need of we address the interest rather than the need. As far as the second issue of tax rebate is concerned, we again started from 20%, while our CI mentioned 15% tax rebate. So we started with a higher number, and we negotiated down to 15%, which was the amount of tax rebate that we needed. Again, here we offered explanations and very reasonable explanations as to how the government would not be harmed in any way by giving this tax rebate. So I think we quite effectively convinced them on these 2 points and got favorable results, favorable agreements in those regards. As to the question of what I would do differently, towards the end of the meeting, when we proposed that we had to get the government to make a statement, a joint statement with us. That is something that they had indicated very early on in the meeting, that they would like the meeting to be kept confidential. So I believe that we should have picked up on that and addressed the issue of making a joint statement or sending out a positive signal a little early on in the negotiation. Since we left it for the last, we could not get the most desirable outcome, where the government could have sort of come out and made a statement that Data Fest is in complete compliance with our laws, has been very accommodative and cooperative in the negotiations. That is something that would have been the best possible solution, and we could not reach there due to the paucity of time. So since they had indicated the point about confidentiality very early on in the meeting, I believe that we could have benefited from bringing this up a little earlier in the meeting rather than towards the late end. So I would do that differently. Sir, you're on mute.
Tom, your mic is on mute. If you could please unmute yourself.
I have no questions in follow-up. Does any other judge have questions? I think we can, now we'll proceed. Sohail?
Yeah, we can proceed, yes.
Good.
All right.
Just one question.
Yes.
Just wanted to know what was the reason for you to agreeing about sharing the algorithm?
Just a second, sir.
Judges, were we supposed to join right now?
Amrita, you can just put them in the waiting room.
It's okay. I'll just put them in.
Okay.
If you could join the breakout room again. Sorry. All right. So sorry, sir. Just join the breakout room now.
Can you go ahead and answer now?
Please do.
Okay, thank you. So in response to your question, why we agreed to share the algorithm, so we did have a concern with it, but suggestively only the general information considered the point of the algorithm and how it was unique. And the confidential information actually had nothing to talk about in this regard. So we felt that it was okay as long as we received all these assurances from them. Firstly, that they would be confidential, that only the topmost officials would be able to see see the algorithm, and that too in our own premises. So essentially, they just run a check and they'd be able to leave. So that trust factor that we had to maintain because we were dealing with the government was essential. And because our CI did not say that we'd be losing out on anything, we found that it was a prudent decision in order to gain the trust of the government, because I believe it worked out well for us because we were able to get the ban temporarily lifted and resort to a permanent solution as well. So in that sense, we felt it was a prudent decision.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amrita, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. You would have received a pop-up. If you could please join it quickly. Yeah, we have the responding party now.
You know the questions you're supposed to ask, or I can remind you. They're in the chat box.
Just a second. So I'll be firstly telling my point of view, and then Shikhar will take over. So when we got our CI, and prior to that, we were already in lines to information of a commission, but in CI, it was something that was on our lines. But before that, we were already having the backup plan of scrutinizing of Booyah app in order to know that how the app functions and what is the sort of transfers that the app is going to make, in regards that there are no bugs and there are no private disclosures, there are no data breaches that is going to happen in future. And in our CI, the major thing that was mentioned is that the conclusive report of USA, the investigation that they conducted, and we already have a sort of idea that Data Fest was not responsible for anything. So we could make our interpretation in that regard, and we were asked to keep it as a secret, and we were able to do that throughout. And secondly, in regards to the BATNA, I'd like to say that national security was something that was of prime importance, but the BATNA would be, if this negotiation fails, we would have instituted this app again, but the institution would have been made because the economic gains has to be prioritized. But if this, the worst alternative could have been that our national security would have remained intact and we would have not installed the app again. Now I'd like to pass and ask Shikhar to take over.
Yes, thank you. So as far as goals and strategies are concerned, I think Diksha, Mr. Bhogan has already very well established them. But just to reiterate them and to summarize them, the goals were pretty much clear that we can't compromise with the sovereignty and security at this stage. And we had to make sure that this app is not having any glitches due to which it is like stealing the data of the users in an unauthorized way. So first of all, we wanted to make sure that there are no bugs and other vulnerabilities present in the coding of this app. Firstly, if we have covered that aspect, we can let go the app ban and we can have it on a temporary note, we can have this app run in the market. Secondly, we wanted to make sure that this whole committee, secondly, I would say plan A was that data center should come to Result. On that basis, we'll be having our data inside the boundaries of India, Result. But that couldn't happen due to some logistics which might happen in the long run. So we were hoping that we can form a committee, and by that we can just have we can oversee those functions, as well as we can have a past report also that there was no such glitch happened on their end. Thirdly, I think in our plan, we had to include, due to the confidential information, that how we have to talk about the other unemployed employees of DataFest. So we could try to bring it as per them, but we had to also talk about the rebate, and that's something which was given unconditional in our CI. So we had to follow by that. And we were not given the financial condition of ours. So that is something we try to dwell upon in a very wise way. Talking about if we can have another negotiation over again, it's like another alternative, if this may be, then we definitely can't compromise upon the security and sovereignty, but we can have this app back in the market with again a try of negotiation through them. That clearly means a second session we can go for. Thirdly, if you had to go the negotiation over again, okay, this would be differently. If we have to go for another negotiation, I think our strategy might not change, because we have already tried our level best that we should not be, giving any relaxation on our part that any such sort of incident may happen again, that DataFest or Booyah app are considered themselves as independent in this market, and in the garb of getting more teenagers for this app, for the usage of this app, they can do some unscrupulous act by taking the information in an unauthorized way. So I think this would be our plan. I think I've spoken to you.
I think I forgot to tell you about the third question. Just to say that I might sound a bit philosophical, but we never get satisfied how much well we perform. But this was something that was expected, and we were expecting this as the best of us that we could do at this point of time. Also, one of the issues in regards to the firewall and encryption that the other party mentioned was something that was not there in the GI and the CI. And in regards to the overall world scenario, 90% of the companies till now do not have firewalls with them, and including the TikTok, if we could see the present scenario, does not have an encryption at this point of time. So that was something that was unexpected and unheard from the other side, but we do not rebutted or could say tell them that was a point against their side. Thank you.
Because I think we thought that judges are the best people to decide upon them, so that we didn't rebut on that note.
I have no questions. Anybody else have a question before we let them go?
No questions.
No questions from my end.
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Moderator.
you would have received a pop-up on your screen. If you could please join the breakout room. Till then, the judges would do the scoring and then we'll proceed. All right, so the teams are in the breakout room, judges. And if you could please, if all of you have the evaluation form, if you could please send that across, and then we'll move forward with the feedback session.
Amritya, is it okay? Like, is there room for discussions between the panelists?
Go ahead, please.
I think my initial thoughts are that for me there was a clear winner, and that being the calling party. I think they had a much better grasp of what their interests were, and not only theirs, but what the other side's interests were. And I think the responding party, at some point of time, they failed to actually understand the bigger picture. And one instance of that is the employment issue. Where I felt that they could have actually tried to evaluate that it wasn't just about those 50,000 employees which the app was employing, but rather about giving out a bigger statement on how business friendly their government is. So I think they lost out a lot of time on being stuck on that. But otherwise, I think generally I felt that the calling party took the initiative a lot more. But again, to the responding party's credit, I think they were very collaborative as well. They were extremely receptive of the calling party's suggestions, and you don't always see that in a negotiation round where there's a tendency to try and be defensive if the other party has come up with a solution. So.
Thank you for that. How do you guys want to handle the feedback portion? I don't mind going last. There's 4 of us. Anybody have any thoughts on how we want to manage that?
So I defer to all of you. You're much more experienced and learned than me, so I'd rather.
Bruce or Samir, any thoughts?
I feel respondent side has a better negotiation in Toto. They have collaborated with the claimant and summarized the points effectively, especially the respondent council has managed well. Though the claimant done, but ineffectively the collaborative negotiation was fine-tuned from the respondent side. And to me, respondent side made an effort to bring the claimant to the table to get the negotiation finalized, and they have an edge over claimant. So that's my view.
Yeah, I agree with that. So far as if the client is concerned on the claimant side, I think he was much better than the counsel, because the counsel was to an extent was simply summarizing what the client was saying, and there was nothing more valuable being added, as a counsel. And comparing to that, the respondent counsel was much more active, much more participative. And of course, the client was also good. I mean, she was able to, handle the situation as a politician would do, getting the demands done to the fullest extent, and, giving little threads and little leverages to get their demands fulfilled. So I think as a team, the respondent fared quite well than the claimant.
So we've had a similar situation in the other round as well, where some judges have had some common views, some have had some different views. So I just suggest you please mark your score sheets the way that you think the best, and once you're done, just let us know so that we can finalize the scores.
Right.
I've sent mine in, and then let's just pick an order for the feedback. And I have no preference. I don't mind going last. I've done a lot of rounds, so with 4 people we get repetitive, and so I can always come up with something fresh after you all speak if you have a choice. But
I think in that case, would it be okay if I go first? Because I'll keep my feedback brief. And then, of course, you all would have much widespread input which you all can add on.
Sohail, just 1 second. Samir sir, if you're traveling and if you're not available for feedback, that's completely fine. We can ask the participants to, later get that. But if you can, then like, would you like to go first?
Yeah, Aditya, let me just go first. I'm just
Yes,
on
sir.
the
Yes, sir.
car,
No
so
problem. Yes, sir.
yeah.
So I think we can have Samir sir, Sohail, Krush sir, and then Tom.
That's perfect for me. Krush, you okay with that?
Okay, lovely. Amrita, let's bring everyone in.
All right.
Yeah, everybody's in?
Yes, sir. Everybody's here.
All right. So was a really excellent negotiation round. I mean, very interesting to hear such intense negotiation from both the sides. Going by the way speakers started, uh, first the claimant, the client. I think you did your best as a client to have this kind of a negotiation, and at the same also making your demands made, and also giving the leverages. So that's how I mean the negotiation should go from a client's perspective. So far as the council is concerned, yes, you also helped your client the way your client was seeking your advice and your help. You definitely did your best. Just little suggestion is that um, you could have been little more active in proposing or a legal side of it, or maybe helping your client to negotiate on many commercial parts, because financials are concerned. You should stick to your role as a counsel, unless of course your client gives you permission, allow you to take those decisions or say something on that. So let's so keep your role specific to what you already said initially, of being a facilitative person rather than a lawyer. So just keep that in mind, not to be overboard with certain issues which your client should be taking it. Otherwise, it's a very good teamwork, both of you. So yeah, that's for the claimant side. And definitely came out quite well. I mean, I won't say as a true politician, but yes, you did your best as a government, as a politician, a government person would speak up and negotiate from the government's angle. You did very well on that. Little bit on the tax rebate, I think that was too quick to come from 12 to 15%. Without getting the assurance of when the workers would be reinstated, or what time frames and all those stuff. So I think that was little too quick. But anyway, given the situation, you took your best call. That's okay. So otherwise, very nicely negotiated from your position. Coming to the last speaker, the counsel from the respondent side, yes, you did your role quite well, helping your client and giving certain suggestions also. May not be from strictly legal point of view, but One thing which I wanted to say that, there was too much of stress on the legislation to be reframed. And I don't know why that discussion actually went on for such a long time, and what was the purpose finally achieved from that, discussion, and whether it was actually required. You had much more to negotiate, and there were much more better, solutions or issues to be discussed rather than, redrafting the legislation as such. But anyway, all said and done, the four of you really did well. I really enjoyed the session, and all the best. Thank you so much.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I think just to start off with, I think you all should congratulate yourselves. I think both teams did an exceptional job, and there was not just chemistry within each other. I think both teams had chemistry, which is quite rare to see, and a lot of the issues went by quite smoothly, and perhaps perhaps India and TikTok can take a leaf out of your book and proceed in the same manner. So I'm going to, overall, of course, it was a great session. Both teams achieved what they came out to achieve. And I would just like to concentrate on a few specific points, which perhaps acts more like a food for thought for you all to keep in mind for future sessions or for the finals themselves. So now coming to the opening statements, I think, again, both teams, they did a good job over there. But I felt in some cases that it was a bit scripted. Yagnesh, over here, I'm talking particularly to you. You are a confident speaker. I mean, all four of you all were. So try and take that out of your rounds. I mean, throughout the session, you were fine. You were speaking confidently, but initially I felt that. And the reason I'm sharing this particular point with you is because I used to suffer from the same issue when I was taking part in competitions, and it was not until I took out that written speech that I became a lot more confident. So that's something to keep in mind. Spoke about the issue of the employees, right, at in your opening statement, and again, I'm not saying it was a wrong thing to do, but just in terms of strategy, because this was an issue which by and large would have gotten resolved to an extent had the main fire been doused. That is the issue of the app being banned in the country. So, but by saying it very early on, you gave the other side an indication that that this is something which is concerning to you. So you're giving away leverage a bit too early on. Again, this is more of a personal a strategic point of view. But, again, it's not something that you did wrongly. It's just something to keep in mind. What I also found quite remarkable is that, neither of the parties used the chat box to set out an agenda. And I think that worked well. And I think that you all were able to go through the issues without needing something like that. But just keep in mind that, was it so seamless because both the teams had really good chemistry? And, you may not have such good chemistry in other rounds. So just try and keep in mind on how you can use these additional tools to keep the conversation focused. It was totally focused in this round, but it may not be in other rounds. Now, coming to my second point and the last point, which I want to speak from for both the teams, the calling party, when it came to the interest, when the way you all shifted the conversation from the location of the server to the underlying interest of security from Rizad's point of view, and I think Arnav, you were the one who actually mentioned that. I think that was really good. And in fact, that's more or less what the point of negotiations are, moving from positions to interests. So I think you all did a good job there. Where I felt that you all lost out on a lot of time, and I think this is something what Samir sir has also mentioned, that you all went on about the data protection laws, because see, you all can't have the server in Rizad in any case, right? So you did a good job in justifying why you couldn't have it over there, but talking about the data protection laws was kind of counterproductive, because Rizad came back to that in the end. And even if they draft comprehensive laws later on, it's not something that you can still do. You cannot have the servers in that country, because your political pressure will not allow you to do that.
So again, try and see where you don't want to go overboard with one thing, especially when you've gotten the job done. You move the conversation away from the location of the service, so there's no need for you to go on there. From Rizat's side again, what I do want to compliment you on, and this is something as somebody who was participating in these competitions a few years back, that there is a tendency, to kind of not accept anything what the other party says when they're coming up with solutions, and it's really highly skilled negotiators who are actually open-minded and who adopt solutions which come from the other side. So I think you all did a great job over there in not being unnecessarily combative, and in fact it's something which is quite rare. You'd think that it's not a very important quality, but it is. So great job on that. Where again, I'm coming back to the issue of the employees. I think you all got stuck over there for quite a bit, and I think that there could have been a lot more creativity there. You all gave too many concessions towards the end, and perhaps what you all could have done is that linked the rebate to future increase in wages, or perhaps say, for example, have uh, have the calling party subscribe to certain performance levels, which increases the tax volume of the collective, the tax which you collect from them, and then offer more rebates. So just think about how you can structure concessions and take it in lieu of certain other concessions given from the other side. Lastly, when it came to the joint statement that you were looking for, and I think Arnav, you said in your feedback that the timing was off. I disagree. I think the timing was fine for that, and because you don't want to jump into a publicity stunt before your issues have been resolved. It doesn't come across as genuine, and it comes across that you're just trying to get your share price to increase. So that was fine. And the other side did a good job in pointing out that no, we're not going to tell the world that the issue has been resolved. We will say that we are working on it, and that statement took care of both parties' interests. So yes, so those are my thoughts, and all the best. Thank you.
Yeah, before Mr. Tom takes up, I would like to add a couple of comments. In fact, both the judges have already spoken well what exactly and good and what are expected. My points are, firstly, it's a tech-law negotiation wherein which we can't expect much. So both the parties have done within the subject limitations a wonderful presentation. So that's my first point. Secondly, there is a balance of power issue in this negotiation. One side is a corporate and another side is a government. So definitely that balance issue will be there in any topic of similar nature. So same was reflected here too. So those are the limitations which we have to look into. Now getting back to the performance by the calling party as well as in comparing to respondent party, I feel the calling party side, little more matching, little, imbalance I found. Other than that, everything went well. Comparing to that, the respondent side, I felt there is, a better combination worked out. That's the only difference I found. The rest all, it was a collaborative negotiations and everything looked good. Then to the council of the calling party, maybe the camera he faces or the way in which he's taking up, he could have, somewhere the eye contact was missing. So that I felt the body language and eye contact, though he tried to present well, but the contact was missing. So that point, he can take care. I believe it's a platform issue or maybe the way in which he places the camera. Maybe that's the issue. Other than that, everything is good and a wonderful presentation. Thank you. Now, Mr. Tom can take it.
benefit of going last is that I can say I agree with everything that everybody said. You got some excellent feedback so far, but I'm going to talk to you about a couple things at first, and I have two positive things in two areas for each side to work on. And I'll do the claimant first and then the respondent. But one thing I wanted to say was, this was to me an excellent example of interest-based negotiation that was the product of really, really good preparation on both sides. I think your communication skills, your strategies were really well exhibited. So congratulations to everybody. At the outset, I wanted to say that you both figured out a way to avoid ever bringing up this other report from a Sadiqa, right? Nobody ever talked about it. It's kind of lurking out there in the background, and there's some interesting things in the confidentials about that, but you managed to avoid any discussion of that at all. But you achieved a good result. So let me talk about the claimant first. And so one of the things I liked about what you did is I called it linking, and we don't see this a lot in rounds that. And I have two examples of that, of you doing that. And one was, if we reveal the algorithm, shouldn't we get a permanent lift? And so you were linking the exchange of something for something else that you wanted. And another interesting example of it was when they were talking about this legislation, which I agree was kind of a waste of time. You said, just like legislation takes a long time, moving servers takes a long time. So you're able to use things the other side said in support of your advancement of your cause. And I encourage you to keep doing that. It's a good skill, and you developed it. One thing I think you lost track of a little bit, and I mentioned it already, is the permanent lift. And I think that's what you needed. And I didn't feel that there was any framework for a permanent lift. We talked about a short-term lift of the ban, but never had a structure. What you really want is the ban lifted permanently. And I think we lost track of that. In the summary, somebody talked about there was an idea about a permanent lift, but maybe I wasn't paying as much attention as I thought, but I'm not sure that you ever really decided, number one, how long is short term? What's a short-term lift? Is it 1 week, 1 month, 1 year? We don't know enough information about that. So a little bit more clarity about what you actually negotiated would have been helpful. And at one point, actually, you talked about the servers staying short-term in Singapore, and really your confidentials don't allow that to happen, right? You don't want anything short-term about that. You want that to be permanent. So a little bit more attention to the confidentials there. The other thing that I think you could have worked on a little bit more was the division of responsibilities. And I had one specific example about that. When at the end we were talking about tax rebate and wages, the council responded to the comment about wages and increase in money and all that, when I thought it was really a client responsibility, not a council responsibility. The last thing I want to say that you do really well is this linkage again. And so when they were talking about why do we need a rebate, we want to pay your citizens more money, we want to hire them all back. So you do a really good job, claimant, of trying to link things both in information sharing and in negotiation strategy. So I encourage you to keep doing that. Job well done. Respondent. Interesting thing that I noticed in the beginning in your opening statement, I liked the way you started out with we need confidentiality throughout the process. And then maybe I imagined this, but I imagined you matching your language, because I think it was Bahunga who talked about a holistic approach. And then council in their opening remarks talk about symbiosis and all this. So you were using the same kind of language, which I thought was very effective. I don't know if it was strategic or just you know each other that well that you were kind of matching your language styles, but I was impressed by that as well. One thing I think you could work on in terms of teamwork, I found that Shekhar, you were repeating a lot of the things that your clients said. And they didn't need to be repeated. And I think you could maybe be more cautious about repeating many of the things and maybe take a different approach to repeating that, because we didn't need to hear it repeated a lot. I think the other thing that you could you could learn from the claimant is this thing about linking things. Try to link things more importantly. And that can be done, for example, when you were talking about the rebate and wages and things like that. You could make an argument for linking things a little bit better. I think too, you can work on summarizing a bit more, that I'm not sure that you used effectively the ability to, along the way, summarize the agreement that you reached about each element in the agenda. The agenda was great. Think about trying to intervene a little bit to make sure both sides have an agreement along the way. The last thing that I think you did really well, I call it loyalty to the confidentials. And there was no part of the confidentials, all the things that they laid out for you, you really mastered and were all incorporated in your strategy, and a job really well done in terms of mastering the confidentials and incorporating all of those at different strategic points along the way. Great job. I don't know who's going to go ahead, but this would have been a great final. I thought you guys did a really, really good job. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi. For the participants, just 1 second. And if the judges wish to stay, please. This is primarily like a vested interest on the part of the drafter of the confidential information. In regards to the second one, right? As Tom said, about the report that came from Acidica. So I'd first like to hear from the claimants, like what was the strategy regarding the second one? How did you feel when you read that? And then I'll hear from the respondents.
So primarily when we read that, we took that as a positive, that it's something that supported our side. That was the first thought that we had. One of the wealthiest nations and the second largest market for Booyah has actually conducted an investigation and kind of cleared their name. But then the last line said that you're unsure whether to use it or not because the report's unverified and based on rumors. So that kind of equalized it. So as the confidential information said that since we didn't have a clear way of using it and it did not naturally come up in the negotiation, we refrained.
Yeah, precisely because it was we were going in a very definite direction from the very beginning when we started the negotiation, and we kind of had an idea of how things are about to go down because we'd agreed the agenda and the issues primarily that we wanted to discuss. So we had it in the back of our mind that we may need to use it at some point, but that opportunity did not come up because that I have an unconfirmed report, I have an unconfirmed news report, like I have some source which tells me that there's a report which has not been verified that I may be in the clear. So that would kind of seem like it would slightly be embarrassing for me to say that in the middle of a negotiation if I didn't have more substance to go on. So that was because we believe we had established a relationship good enough for us to negotiate organically. And this would have completely thrown us off.
No, that makes sense. That completely makes sense to me. Yeah, for sure. From the respondent side, what happened when you read the second part of, the confees? So like this is for the claimants, the respondents confeed actually said, Pratham, I can like tell them now, right? Because I don't think it should matter. Like everything's done, right? Yeah. So the respondent side said that you were actually in the clear and it would have been detrimental to their side had you bring it up in your round. So that was like it was almost like a game that was happening where we wanted to see how much risk appetite you would have or how much influence would it have in the round. So from the respondent side, if I could hear what your strategy was regarding that.
We were basically focusing on the fact that this is something that should be kept secret from our side until and unless the other sides bring up. So we were totally dependent on how the other side was going to take that. So that was our strategy in this regard. But even if other side, Shikhar, you can tell.
Yeah, you carry on if you're finished, Sanek. Okay.
Yeah. So, can I ask a question? Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, that one. Yeah, please go ahead.
So, client, Diksha, if you were asked, do you have any information about the result of that report? What's your answer?
So I would have answered in a tactful manner. You could say I would have told them that it's a high classified information that we can't disclose at this. That have the conclusive report at this point of time. So,
yeah,
I mean, Tom,
what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah,
I'm asking because I brought this up. Thanks for answering that. Yeah.
I had a small question about the question that Thomas asked. In conjunction, when you read all the issues and then you bring up this point in the respondent's CI, then for me, it doesn't really add up, because if their interests are also economic maximization and, they want the data service to come back, then this point should have been brought up, then it should be clearly available to both the parties, right? Because it's something in the interest of both the parties. I don't see how it's counterproductive for either of us.
But you could have gotten it because you heard a rumor. You could have asked, have you guys heard any rumors about the results of the report, right? Or do you have any information about it? It was in your control to find out if they could help you, because in reality, it's helpful information to you. They knew that they could trust you to go forward.
So I'll tell you what. It's actually
the risk initiative.
No. I'll tell you, it's even smarter than you're thinking it is. It works on two levels, and that's the reason why you put it up. The first one was primarily dealing with how parties would go about the information gathering factor. It's the claimants who need to decide how much risk appetite they have, and can they actually come back from a point if the report comes out against them, So it was a decision that you guys would have had to take and see how many skills you would have to use to ask questions without directly asking them, so that you get some hints as to what the answer might be. So that was the first thing. For the respondents, on the other hand, it was basically a tool where, again, the information gathering would come out as to how they could dodge the questions or avoid it had you asked them indirectly what was happening. And when they would be asked directly if that was, if that was a situation or not, then as Tom had pointed out in the judge's briefing, it would kind of come to the ethical morality of the participant as to whether he would lie outright and say, no, we don't know what the report says. Or he would come out and justify saying, that the report is there, but we can't tell you what it is. So that's the first level that we were working on. And the second one, you're partially right when you say that it was good for both parties. However, if you actually look into, and the way that we frame their confis is that if the respondent is kind of, it comes out that the respondent wrongly, set out a preemptive ban, then it would be much easier for you to remove it this instant. You could go out and say, yeah, you need to remove the ban tomorrow, because you have no grounds of actually enforcing that, which would have not given them enough time to talk about financial servers or the jobs and everything, because then they leave all their leverage. So it was basically a twin objective of putting that in, but it was completely dependent on how it would be played out by the parties. Yeah.
Aditya, you're right. They could have agreed to a permanent ban because they had the report information already. But it never came up that's what I pointed out, is how come we didn't spend more time talking about a permanent ban? And that would have been an interesting negotiation, because respondent had the ability to agree to it because they knew what the report was going to say.
Right.
And you could have extracted something else from that. But it's hard to predict how all these things are but interesting dynamic.
Shekhar, you had something to say.
Yeah, I think I might slightly disagree with the stance which you have, Aditya, because this information regarding the USA, that USA has already come out with this conclusive report, though not publicly, but through private channels. I think I would still remain unfettered had I been in the position of counsel side, because, or from the side of respondent, from where I'm coming from, because that is something, that particular country's information that didn't get leaked. But that doesn't mean that my information hasn't got leaked. First of all, we don't know the servers are located where for the respective countries. Second of all, we don't know what kind of relationships do the alien country share with the other two countries. So I think that would change the...
No, see, for sure. I mean, you didn't attend the judge's briefing, but I primarily said this only, that I said that even though the US report has come out, which is saying that they're completely safe. However, since the border dispute is having between Razad and Alania, there's a very good chance that they might be misusing a particular data from from the respondent's country. So obviously, these are points that we had, which we had discussed before, and that was obviously a consideration. But if I was a claimant and you would answer me and you would say, yes, that report has been inconclusive, I can give it to you in writing, and I can guarantee this right now in front of 20 people, you would lose the round, because I would make you take out the ban no matter what, or you would seem too unreasonable that you would still put on the ban on my cap. That's all I can say.
The factor where, so was it mentioned in the CI of the respondents that their intelligence services have come up with the points that we are leaking information? Because that's something that they came up with, right? That
could you repeat that? Sorry.
So the respondents, was it mentioned in their CI that the Razadian intelligence forces or any intelligence report had come out with any information that data
that was in the general information, the intelligence, the preliminary.
So basically, there was like some initial report that came out in Razad, right, which was because of which they banned it. But then nothing was very conclusive. The next step would be to do a complete investigation report by Razad to figure out whether that was right or not. Until that would happen, the US report came out which said that you're completely in the clear. So it's basically, but the good part is we never told them that that the report has come out or it even exists. So like it would have been surprising for you guys to bring it up in the round, but also not surprising because they would have assumed that would be in your conference, which the respondents did really well. Like I wasn't very sure, whether you would take that into account because it never says that they know that the report has come out. But it was good that you thought before the round that that even if that happens, this is what I'll answer. So that was a good thing that you guys did. Yeah.
Let me just say something. So we're spending a lot of time talking about this. In my ballot, it had no bearing. I mean, it's just an intellectual conversation we're having. It didn't impact the way this was managed. Didn't impact my score at all because it didn't need to come up. You built trust in some other way, and so. But for me, it's just curious that because I see many times difficult issues get ignored, and it didn't. Don't let this long conversation about it worry you at all about scoring. Okay. At least as far as I'm concerned, it didn't impact my ballot at all. Good luck.
I just wanted to say to all the judges, thank you so much for everyone. Thank you so much everyone for coming in, and it's been a wonderful round. All the best to the teams. We're not sure yet; we don't have the results, but I've been asked to clear this account so that we can start the next one, whatever, some meeting somewhere.
Yeah, so we'll be announcing the results and the link is being sent to the participants group. If all the participants could please join that link and then we'll make the announcement there.
All right, see you later.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck.